Hello, I'm Patrick Sheldon. Welcome to the Committee on BEN, the Business and Employment News Network. We discuss the world through the lens of jobs, and I'm pleased to welcome our first guest, Anthony Hayden Guest and Lindsay Jean Ashby. Anthony is an art writer for ArtNet, The Daily Beast, and the author of 6 books. Lindsay is the Chief of Staff of the World Energy Forum. She's involved in women's rights at the United Nations. Anthony, Lindsay, welcome. We'll be discussing one of the more harrowing stories of our time, that of young women in Nigeria who were kidnapped last year by the Islamist extremist group Boko Haram. This story commanded worldwide attention when hundreds of girls were abducted in April of 2014 from a high school in the province of Chibok. It's located in the northeast corner of Nigeria. Nigeria received offers of help from many countries. China and Israel have offered satellite reconnaissance information. The US and France offered special forces, and even Iran offered aid. But the girls remained in the hands of their captors. Now recently, the Nigerian military captured some of the leaders of Boko Haram and managed to free 234 girls who were being held captive. It is not known whether the girls from the Chibok school were among the group. Many of those girls seem to have been sold into slavery, and many of those 214 who were freed are now pregnant. The name Boko Haram literally means Western education is forbidden, and it appears the abduction of schoolgirls is a deliberate choice. Lindsay, let me ask you, what motivates the leaders of Boko Haram? Is this a war against Christians or a war against women?
I think it's a little bit of both, particularly with the Nigerian case. As mentioned, Boko means fake, Western education kind of in this context, and Haram, forbidden. So Western education is not forbidden, and that extends to wearing a shirt and trousers and voting in elections, and those types of things that are anything dealing with West. So in that context, the Nigerian group is very much against Western influence. And I know if you look back to the Mount Sinjar, the captives that were in Mount Sinjar back in Iran, that was definitely had to do with persecution of Christians, and Obama, that's one of the reasons why he sent in some of the airstrikes back in those times. So with respect to the Nigerian case, definitely education. They have set up Islamic schools in the Nigerian region, and as mentioned, the top 3 states in Nigeria are considered to be under a state of emergency. So,
well, what about the issue of women involved with this? Why are women the victims here?
Right, well, Angelina Jolie recently stated that women are often the first to be affected by war, but the last to be considered. And so I think in this case, women are first of all taken out of schools. So it affects their livelihood, their time when they're creating their identity, and they're not being educated. Some of the accounts are horrendous. Instead of being in school, they're being raped multiple times a day by some of these extremists. And so it's very much with the combination of establishing Islamic schools and then also having these girls stripped from their livelihood and their families, it's definitely a way of preventing them from getting educated, particularly with Western education.
All the accounts are horrible. Anthony, you've been following this story. What is your take on it?
Well, I think there's very little one can say about Boko Haram. It's clearly horrible. What I would say is this: I've worked long time in Muslim countries. It's been perfectly normal, and like any other country, the ones I know mostly in the Middle East, I know Malaysia, but V.S. Naipaul, a long time ago, 1981, wrote a book called Among the Believers. Even back then, he said, I had no idea the madness had gone so far. But I want to bring in some history here. When I'll be brief. When Darwin came in the 19th century, there was a wave of hybrid religions that said they could be proved, and sciences you had to believe in. In the 60s, there was a worldwide wave of utopian radicalism. Everyone I knew was a Maoist or Marxist. To the extent there was one little country in Latin America, I don't know which, that thought they had a right-wing student movements, until their brothers told, no, boys. And gave them a little red book, and it became that. Now we've had a wave of fundamentalism, intolerant fundamentalism. We should look at ourselves very closely. I think the kind of anti-abortionists are willing to bomb clinics I think anti-science people, creationists, people who disbelieve all scientific proof about planetary warming, I think they're cousins of Boko Haram, simple as that. It's a worldwide thing.
And your personal beliefs are that this is going to be with us for a long time? Or?
I've been hoping, I mean, a few years ago, I believe there'll be another. It's time for another mood swing in the world. I personally can't wait. It'll also probably be pretty horrible in different ways, but it can't be horrible in this way.
Okay. Let's go back to the subject of the women involved. What can be done for them, Lindsay?
Well, as mentioned, countries are sending in assistance. I know that they're not sending in helicopters due to the severity of the situation. Definitely applause should be had for the Nigerian army, who has, through strategic operations, they've been able to come in and recover some of those girls. But it's an interesting case because in some instances, the women are identifying with their captors and actually shooting back at their rescuers. So several of the girls have been killed because of this, and they've even killed some police officers as well. So it's interesting, you mentioned this, definitely journalists are coming in there, interviewing some of the girls, and it's putting their lives even at risk and bringing light to this subject. But you know, what can be done? I mean, certainly it's important that these girls are given voice. There have been movements all around with respect to activities happening around and in the United Nations, and that are sort of advocating for the rights of these women. But then also, I think identifying and addressing some of the psychological aspects of what is happening to these girls. It's estimated 2,000 or so have been captured, and about 200 up to 700 in reports have been recovered. So
you're talking that they are treating them psychologically. What else are they doing for the women who've been released?
So I think they're attending to them, making sure that they're okay.
There's got to be medical needs and such, and especially with the women who are now pregnant.
Yeah. Some of them have had terrible accounts of vomiting blood and some signs of internal damage due to multiple rapes, probably during their time there. So I think they're trying to first make sure that they're stable and address their psychological concerns as that'll be definitely a process.
But there is world attention on this now.
Yes, certainly. There's new reports put out every day and about updates on what is happening. Okay. But it also extends to some of these girls will be dealing with these issues for a long time, and the United Nations now ambassador is a woman from Qatar, from the country of Qatar, and one of the things that she did during her early diplomacy career was bring light to autism, and she says that people come and thank her to this day for shedding light on that issue. So certainly women, and not just diplomats, but women and men who give light to these psychological issues, I think it really helps them see that world attention, people care about them, their issues are being addressed, since they will probably be dealing with this for a long time.
Very good. Anthony, let me bring you into the conversation. I want to discuss a little bit about President Obama. Was he right to offer U.S. Special Forces, in this case, to assist the Nigerian government? What do you think?
I think it was a good idea. I mean, yeah, why not?
I just wondered if you think this is bringing us closer to another war on another front.
I can't see. We're already in that war, I believe.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. So what's the right punishment, or can there be a punishment, do you think, for Boko Haram?
You're talking about zealots. You're talking about utterly irrational people. Like many criminals of that nature, they really belong in hospital. Punishments are imposed in order to prevent other people from doing the same thing, really. And so I guess the punishment should be severe.
So Lindsay, let me ask you, what do you think should be the punishment?
Well, that's a full question. I think that it's important that the Nigerian government continue its operations. I think that they're in the best position to sort of know what to do about this. I don't know that a lot has been addressed in terms of what should be done with the extremists, but certainly the U.S. has declared Nigeria a state of terrorism. Well, this particular group, sorry, not the state of Nigeria, but Boko Haram is a terrorist group. And so I think that definitely it's important to continue to figure out the psyche of some of these people and figure out how to, address that core issue as well. How do they recruit? Ransom's actually a large part of how they get their money. So it's been noted that they've kidnapped the wife of the vice president of Cameroon and held her for ransom. So so what can be done? I mean, there's all sorts of debates with respect to should one pay for ransom, should one not? And so I think analyzing all of these issues, certainly by authorities and those directly involved, I think they're doing what they can, and I think it needs to continue to occur.
Well, thank you. Stay with us. In a moment, our panelists will look more deeply into Boko Haram's motives. This is BEN, and I'm Patrick Sheldon.